Hi, good morning, Mr. Bowen Jones again. Welcome to another video in the series for the Ysgol Eryri transition programme. Today's video is going to be about who you're going to meet in school. Now, in your primary school at the moment, you will most probably know everybody who works there. You'll know the lady who works in the office, you know the people who serve you meals at lunchtime, you'll know who the caretaker is, and of course you'll know your teachers very well. The problem that we find is that when you come up to Ysgol Eryri each September, you hardly know anybody, and there's all these adults, and there will be more adults that you will come into contact with because we are a bigger school. So I thought this morning, or this time, we could go through a few of the members of staff who are going to be quite a big part of Year 7. Now, first of all, there's me. I'm Mr. Bowen Jones, as you know, and I'm head of Year 7. I've worked at Eryri since 2001. I've been there an awful long time, and I teach a few subjects. I teach business, I teach IT, I teach accounting, and I teach skills. So I teach an awful lot of things, but essentially my department is the business studies department, and I have been a head of year at Ysgol Eryri since 2003, an awful long time, and I've been head of Year 7 since 2009. So I like to think I've got quite a little bit of experience of being a head of year. So you'll see me most days. I'll be in my office around the Year 7 area, and if you ever need to stop and ask me a question, you're more than welcome to do so. Now, I work very closely with a number of people, but my immediate deputy head of Year 7 is Mrs Zakara. Now, you'll see me and her around the school lots of times having chats and having natters, normally about pupils and finding out what is going on. And we, on a daily basis, will be around the Year 7 office. And Mrs Zakara has been working with us for a number of years. Her subject is RS and RE, and she teaches geography and history as well. And she is an absolutely brilliant deputy head of year, and she will always help you out. So if you've got any questions, you can always ask her. So Mrs Zakara and myself working very, very closely together to help you settle in to your new lives at Ysgol Eryri. Now, the next person you're going to meet is Mrs Sutton. Now, Mrs Sutton is the head teacher at Ysgol Eryri, a very important person in your school career. Mrs Sutton works for the science department. She was a chemist, and she has been head teacher since 2017. Prior to that, Mrs Sutton was a head of year for many years, and an assistant head and a deputy head teacher. So Mrs Sutton comes with an awful lot of experience on how schools work and how year groups work. And she also has a fantastic memory for pupils. So if you meet her, I can tell you now, she'll remember who you are. Then you will meet Mr Mackenzie. Now, Mr Mackenzie is a deputy head teacher at Ysgol Eryri, and he has responsibility for Year 7. So I meet Mr Mackenzie most days to tell him what is going on in Year 7, what are the pupils getting up to, and how things are going. And we meet once a week to discuss how Year 7 is going and how we're going to make things much, much better. Mr Mackenzie's been a teacher at Ysgol Eryri for many years, and his specialist subject is PE and sports. So he's very, very interested in those subjects. So if you're a footballer or a rugby player, you can always have a chat with Mr Mackenzie about the latest things that are going on in the sporting. Following that, we move on to our additional needs department, and that is headed by Mrs Robison. Now, Mrs Robison's been in charge of additional needs for about 4 to 5 years now, and does an excellent job in making provision for those pupils who need that little bit of extra support. Mrs Robison's subject is art and textiles, and if you're interested in art, you need to have a conversation with her. Now, you may meet Mrs Robison for a variety of reasons, but you must be aware that she's very, very heavily involved in the Year 7 pastoral team, and you may meet her. Mrs Robison has an assistant, and her name is Mrs Gumby. Now, Mrs Gumby does a lot of the testing and a lot of work in terms of numeracy, literacy, extra help, and she's based in a room in B block, and that's B210. Now, you need to remember that. You may need to go there for a chat with her. Mrs Gumby, absolutely lovely, and if she asks you to go with her, it would be for your work to help you along the way. Then we have another department in school. You may have heard of it. It's called HAVOD, and it's called EPIC. Now, this is an area in school whereby we include all pupils. So, for instance, if you break your leg, for instance, and you can't come into school, you go and work in EPIC and HAVOD. If you're feeling a little bit under the weather and not really feeling like going into some of your lessons, you can pop into HAVOD for a day or so, get yourselves back on track, and then go off to your normal lessons. Now, that is headed by Mr Evans, a great chap. His subject is mathematics, and he is an avid runner. Now, Mr Evans has ran over 100 marathons. You need to have a chat with him about that. Absolutely fantastic achievement from Mr Evans. Have a chat with him. He manages EPIC and HAVOD, and he's responsible for that particular area. But also, he's the school attendance officer, and he will be asking questions about attendance. And I meet with him every week, and we go through the registers and things like that. So, Mr Evans, head of EPIC and HAVOD, and another teacher who you may meet is Mrs Deakin. Mrs Deakin, lovely member of staff. She works in HAVOD and she works with Year 7 pupils a lot. If you've got any areas that you need help on, she's absolutely brilliant. Her subject area is psychology, very, very clever lady with lots and lots of great ideas to help young people progress and move on and basically achieve the best that they can. Another person you may meet is our student manager, who is Mrs Rowlands. Now, Mrs Rowlands works in the referral area in school by the offices of the deputy heads. Now, Mrs Rowlands will meet you if, for instance, I or Mrs Zakara are not available. Also, Mrs Rowlands runs all the staffing at lunchtime, so you may very well see her on the yard. From that, we have Mrs Walker, who is the cross-phase developer in school, and Mrs Walker is responsible for ensuring that all the projects work closely together and that what you're learning is actually relevant. The final person I'm going to introduce today is Mrs Clinos Williams, who runs our Nurture Centre. Now, you may very well at some point go and meet her. She may ask to see you, and she works in a lovely part of the school. And if you meet her, tell her all about yourself. You're absolutely brilliant. So there we go, a very quick introduction into who's who at Ysgol Eryri. Don't worry about it. There is nothing to worry about at all. It's just information to help and point you in the right direction. And if you've got any questions about who people are, you must ask when we turn up in September. And you can always say, I don't know who you are. What do you do? And people will tell you this. I'm a science teacher or what have you. So there we go. Hope that's okay for you. Any questions, bear them in mind for September. See you soon. Take care.